all of your hang-ups, but we won't tell you. We won't tell you. 'Cause if we did, you just would not believe us. So do what you do. Do what you do. Why should we waste time with those who won't listen? But here is a clue. Here is a clue. War, war, war.
Folks, welcome inside the Paris Sea Palace high above 3773's Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. Comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. Can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today, and it's super hyped up today because I got a chance to further explore the regionalism of music in this country before full interconnection. And what that really means is that cats are able to come together in an organic fashion, get discovered, and wind up becoming units on the bandstand for many, many years. And what happens then is that when you get on the bandstand for many, many years in the same group, all of a sudden the vocabulary of music is expanded and extended. And music is the language of the soul, and rhythm is love, and that is what my show is about. And today we get a chance to talk to a decorated guitarist, a guy who made it up on his own. There were no jazz curriculums. You could throw away the textbooks. He played his own style in the band known as War. He's still doing it today. Howard Scott, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jay, good morning, and to all your listeners. I just start off like, we have the answer to all of your hangups. Well, let's get into that and talk a few answers today. How you doing, everybody?
Hey, dude, we're doing great. People are fired up. I mean, if you have any answers for us, you can drop it on us now. If not, we can just. I'm sure it'll reveal itself.
That whole thing right there came from Papa D. Allen when I think that was on the first War album, right? Yeah, Papa D. Allen came up with that whole saying there.
You know, why is that the Lonely Puppy Dog album? That's my favorite album. To me, like, that is the most heavily percussive album. And I kind of wanted to start by asking you, you know, I'm 39 years old, and, you know, I taught history for a while, and you get into the history books, and it's like civilization starts with the Greeks and the Romans, but it started in the motherland. And it started in Africa, and the first universities were in Africa, and all the instruments came from Africa. And I wanted you to talk about your first experience in the motherland and ultimately the language of the drum, because for cats that don't know, that tune was called War Drums, and everyone's playing percussion on it. And the M1 Dishi band, opened up, Herbie's band, they all played percussion for 20 minutes. And I know you guys were doing that stuff because you know the power and the language of the drum. So just riff on that if you would.
Yeah, well, that right there, when we first started this whole venture with doing war, we all played percussion because that's what we grew up doing. But when we were with Eric Burden, and Eric Burden always do talking about free-form jazz. That's what we used to get on stage and jam for like 20, 30 minutes with no mission in line, just start jamming. And so when we did that whole war thing right there, when Papa D was the percussionist, and we all came in, and we just started, just from the heart, to start with this whole jamming thing. And it was just a fun thing to do. And my connection to the motherland would have to be from my father and my mother and father, because they raised me that way. So that's what that is.
Well, let's talk about it. What did they expose you to? I mean, was it Folkways Records? Was it beyond that? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is that the music came out of the communities, and you talk to cats, if the parents that were acutely aware of the motherland and the significance of it, they had many different ways of exposing their children to that. And so I just want, maybe more to the point, if you really had a transcendent experience in your youth playing or experiencing percussion, whether you ever cross paths with the original masters like Babatunde Olatunji or Pop. What I'm getting at is the transcendent metaphysical qualities of the drum.
Yeah. Well, that right there would have to be for my heartbeat, actually. But no, my father was an excellent folk blues guitarist. He was born in 1900, and from the time he grew up, he worked the rails in this country, and he played guitar and he sang the blues, and that whole thing where he came from had to come from his grandfather, his great grandfather. But the soul of that music was he played blues, and he taught me how to play the blues and the history of the blues, and that right there. That music is comes from the motherland too, because the blues came over, like B.B. King said, blues came over on a ship. But I grew up in Southern California when I was 15, 16 years old, playing in some of the worst and the best blues clubs in Los Angeles and San Pedro, California. So I grew up learning how to play this whole transitional blues thing from some of the cats that came up. Like I was 15, these guys are in their 40s and 50s, and they'd been out there playing blues for years. So I was good enough that I was able to play in the clubs in Los Angeles, California, San Pedro actually, and I learned how to play from some of the best, man. My cousin Jack Nelson Jr. came to me from San Antonio, Texas. He had a Gibson Les Paul Jr. guitar. He taught myself, Howard Scott, and my nephew, B.B. Dickerson, both how to play bass guitar at the same time. And from that point on, man, we can go into like how my high school days, how we got into the war days, but I started playing blues guitar out in San Pedro, California, age of 15.
No, this is fascinating because I going back to your dad. What I love when I talk to the old school jazzers, cats that might have been going to Juilliard in the mid '60s. There was no jazz curriculum. You were I really would love you to talk about the feel, the time feel. Like you talked about your heartbeat, and I think that's something we need to explore more too. But the idea of like your dad's own time feel. And how his individual expression rubbed off on you in your own playing. Because, there are books, I don't know if there's a Howard Scott book, but there's books, Pat Martino, Kenny Burrell, all these guys I've interviewed multiple times. And there's so much material out there today. There's so much stuff to copy that cats have a really hard time finding their own individual voice. And that was not the situation with Howard Scott. So how did your dad help you feel the music and develop your own style?
How he developed it was I would sit back and watch him and listen to him when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old. And he would sit back and tune up their guitar and start playing things that, about, life on the road and the railroad songs and stuff. And it always fascinated me that, just to hear that, the sound of that guitar and hear those stories. So when I got the opportunity to, I think when at an early age I had these rhythms in me, and I could write these words and these stories. So that part of me developed really young. So I started playing guitar at an early age, and I think the stories and the rhythms that I learned from him, came into my rhythm and the rhythm. See, when I played bass guitar, and I went over to a lead guitar, I still had the philosophy of a bass guitarist in my head when I started playing guitar. So I had rhythm and bass lines in my guitar lines.
I dig. I know. But what kind of bass were you playing? Like a Fender bass guitar?
Oh, yeah.
Because this is
my father taught me. He took me down to the Fender factory in Fullerton, California. And I got my first bass guitar, and since I had to go to Fullerton to get it because I wanted it to be a custom color. Everybody else had that sunburst guitar. I wanted mine to be coral. So we had to go order that bad boy. So when I was in high school, I had the finest Fender bass, the finest Fender amplifier. So when I was equipped to play with these guys because I had the good equipment, first of all. Secondly, I could play. And my father was there with me. When I would go to the clubs, I was underage, man. He'd take me to these joints. And he would stand there in the back and watch.
Talking to Howard Scott here on the Jake Feinberg Show, already having a ball. I mean, but the bass instrument at that time was not. We were not into this phase of like it being used as a individual voice within the music. That came later.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
want you to talk to peeps around the world that are listening and they're going to hear this later on for years. How, as a bass player, how do you make the notes round?
What do you mean to make the notes round?
A bass player's job is to make the notes round and full.
Oh yeah, you know, like I said, when I started doing that, I was like 15 years old. Now the thing about the bass is, I learned how to play the bass. I love to play those notes that you're talking about. You know, the notes of the bass and the notes of the beat from the drum have to go together to make things like in a group work. And I think my point was like playing bass and to see make the notes round was that the notes were so soulful and it carried the band. So you had to play these soulful fat notes, as you would say, to keep things going.
Was it also because it was not amplified? I mean, you had like, you know...
Oh, it's amplified. No, I had a Fender amplified. I wasn't playing stand-up bass.
No, but there weren't mics on every piece of equipment on the stage, so your ears grew a lot. It's what I'm trying to say is your ears were huge. Your ears were...
No.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm getting. So the roundness came from... just keep riffing on that. I mean, how did that... the soulfulness lent itself to the roundness of the notes?
To me, it did. It came natural for me because when I grew up and what I was hearing was that sound. I grew up with that sound in me. So if it transitioned from somewhere else, that was just something I grew up with. You know, that was just a part of me and part of my playing.
But then eventually you played the bass. Were you playing the bass with Deacon and Harold?
Oh no! See. When I first started, man, I was in junior high school and high school when I first started, and myself, BB Dickerson, and myself, we were, but you know, he's my nephew. We both learned how to play bass together, but we could never play in the same band together because you couldn't put two bass players in the same band.
Right? Except Coltrane. Coltrane put
huh?
Coltrane towards the end of his life had two upright bass players, but
yeah, no, he was out there, man, because that's spacey to me.
I know.
But if there was no way you're gonna put two bass players, so I chose to go over to play guitar. So me and BB could play together, and in our first band, the Creators, I'm telling you, the finest bass player ever, even in today's standards, with BB Dickerson, because he was the most underrated and fully executional bass player that could play everything. And I used to watch him play, and he was a better bass player than me because he could play all those notes and stuff and sing at the same time.
Wow!
And wouldn't miss a lick.
Wow!
And I see a whole lot of guys, man, that are playing instruments today that can't do that. But you mentioned Deacon, yeah, and Harold. I met Harold Brown when I was playing in a nightclub down in San Pedro, and I was playing bass then. I was playing bass when I met Harold, not guitar.
I really want to talk about. This is so important for history. I mean, so Harold was. Can you talk about the? First of all, I also want to be clear. San Pedro? You were playing those clubs, but were you down at like Memory Lane in South Central? Were you going to those clubs as well? Were they like in South Central?
As far as I went to some of the clubs in South Central, but I mainly played the clubs, and because look, when I'm 15, 16 years old, I played clubs in Los Angeles and L.A. During the time we were coming up, had so many nightclubs. There was so much music out there because all the cats from Houston and Texas had migrated to L.A. because of the fact that the music business in Texas wasn't as growing, and LA had this whole open scene of music. It was like the whole industry was in LA. So the cats came out to the West Coast to work. They needed to work. So that was happening in Los. That was the whole music scene out there.
Well, there was how quickly you were born in California? You didn't come from Texas, though.
I was born in San Pedro, California.
Exactly. Right. So, yeah, I mean, like, I mean, the Crusaders, I've interviewed all those cats except Stix Hooper. They grew up in the wards, but then they came out to Southern California because it was just that much more open. And obviously there was a monster music scene out there. But, you know, I got to go back to this. Were you a beatnik? Were you a beatnik? Because Lester Chambers Lester Chambers used to show up on the beach. He was eating Owsley's acid and playing brush bars on cars, playing percussion. No,
not me, man. My parents wouldn't let me be a beatnik. Shit, I didn't even know what a beatnik was. I might have been. I wasn't a shelter kid. I was out there. But as far as music goes, man, I was exposed to some of the best music and some of the best clubs in the world. I said all the music industry was in Southern California at that time, and like I say, all the big blues players had migrated to L.A., so they needed to work, and I was there to help them.
So who
now, I'm not being a beatnik.
Yeah, no, it just was fascinating to me. You know, Chambers Brothers. You know, you had Bucktooth Grills, and people were going down to the beaches, and you know, they were playing a lot of percussion. But who were some of the blues cats? I mean, were you playing behind like who were you backing up?
Lowell Folsom, you was getting ready to say.
That's right.
Lowell Folsom, sure enough.
Johnny Guitar Watson?
Charles. No, I mean, Watson, man, believe me, when Watson came up, they were comparing me to Watson. He was like older than me. And they said, here's Watson. I go in the club and say, here's Watson right here. And I said, who's Watson, man? I didn't know Johnny Guitar Watson was such a heavy player, man, at that time. I was just there, and they said, here's Watson. Johnny Watson do that stuff, boy. But he did one of my songs. He did one of my songs later on.
What song did he cover that you did?
He covered, hang on a second. He covered one of my war songs called Babyface.
That is fantastic, because that dude was way. I mean, were you hip to his stuff that he was doing, "Hot Little Mama" and those tunes in the '50s that he was doing?
No, I wasn't, because, like I said, when he was coming up, he was older than me. He was a man he was a grown man when I was coming up, and he was playing in. He even came to Los Angeles from Texas.
Exactly.
He came out there with the whole migration, and I played with guys that played with Bobby Bland, the Bobby Bland players. All those guys came from Texas, and I played behind them out there.
What did you learn about the idea of just supporting the tune? I mean, in today's world, there's not as much bandstand opportunities for younger cats, so they have a tendency to have to play very busy, and it's look at me, look at me, look at me. But I've talked to David T. Walker and all these other cats, and it was really about supporting the tune and finding a way to get your voice in there. And I'm just curious about that original bandstand experience. I mean, were you stretching? I mean, actually, Johnny Guitar was stretching out a lot of his songs and playing instrumental tunes, and he had a lot of attitude. Which one were you more of were you saying a lot, or were you just kind of, finding the space?
I was, during those days, I was finding my space, and there was a group out in Los Angeles called the Kinfolks.
That's David T. Walker.
Yeah, tell me about it.
That was the Chitlin circuit. You were go ahead.
Yeah, we would go up and play head to head with the Kinfolks, and they were a little older than us. We would look at them and say, "Boy, these dudes are it's awesome, man." The Kinfolks, the lead singer of the Kinfolks, named Buzz Cooper, David T. Walker. And I often wonder what happened to those dudes. They were playing at a place called the California Club and Moe's Swing Club out there. And we'd go out there and hit and jump. They'd be on stage. We'd go in there and sit there, man. We were a fearless band. Ken Folks was pretty rough guys. David T. Walker, man, he was a guitarist.
Now, this was the Creators that you were in?
The Creators. That was a high school band before we got into the night shift, which we had with Eric Deacon Jones.
Okay, so I want to talk about this. Well, first of all, we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to listen to this voice, listen to the content, and then this ties into what we're talking about. So take a listen, and we'll come back.
Made a life living like that. So to answer your question is that I think we all were like misfits in a sense. We all were like true artists that love what we do. You know, if you see a guitar player, here's an interesting point about it. If you see if you know if you play guitar and you really well, you can look at another guitar player where the fingering is, and a lot of times you can say, oh, he's playing a C chord or an A minor chord or whatever. You know, you can tell. Guys like Howard Scott, for example, on guitar, he'll play your C chord, but his fingering is not going to be the cookie cut where the C note and the E note and the G note to make a C chord is going to be right there what you see in the book and all that. So right then and there, when he plays the C chord, he's going to it's going to be a little bit different sound, the timbre and everything on that guitar than just this really squeaky clean cookie cut thing. And if you take that scenario with all of us, not just how we play, but how we do it and all that, there is a chemistry that is as much of like take a tune like Lowrider. Why is it when a Lowrider is such a popular tune, it's become like a tequila? You know, it's become a standard, if you will, huge. I mean, everybody uses Lowrider, commercials, movies, whatever. It'd be a lot cheaper for them if they just did a sync license with the publishing company, and re-recorded Lowrider. That's a lot cheaper than getting a license publishing and still have to pay also to use the master. Why is that? Because I think the sound that we have, the arrangement is as much of the composition as the composition itself.
All right, Mr. Scott, who is that?
I have no clue. That sounds like Lee Oscar to me, but I have no clue whether that was Lee Oscar or not.
Yeah,
I knew.
Yeah, I've been on this trip for.
I knew that was Lee Oscar when he first opened his mouth. I mean, been playing with him forever.
April. That was I've been on this trip for 6 years, Howard. That was April 29th, 2014, and he name dropped Howard Scott. And I want to go back to this idea of individuality. You didn't play the C chord the way it was supposed to be played. That's attitude. That's headstrong attitude. All right. So when did you start to create your own individual sound, like with the creators or with the? I really want you to talk about this because every David T. Walker, every guitar player that I've interviewed, you pretty much know when you hear you can tell who they are. And I can tell who you are. So why don't you talk a little bit about your evolution as far as your own style? Because you didn't play it like the cookie cutter book.
No, I didn't. And I did. I took guitar lessons, which is like fine. You know, I should go to get my guitar and jump on a bus in Compton, California, and people would laugh at me because I'm rolling out and see with this big amplifier in the bus. And I would go take guitar lessons, and I learned. I said, this is fine. You know, I'll learn how to play. But my own style of playing came from like rhythm, and not playing the C chord like Lee Oscar would say. I just started playing C chords. I had to get a different sound, and I would take out a couple of notes and I'd play. I would finger it different. It would be a C chord, but it would sound totally different than the key C chord because it have some kind of like distorted notes in there, which I would put in. I made my style because my guitar styles, playing guitar style and playing chords and rhythm, are totally different than anybody else's. That would be my style of playing guitar, and it was just something that I wasn't, conscious of doing. I didn't go out there and say this. I'm trying to change myself to be different than everybody else. It was just something that came with me.
It's fascinating, and you would say that even though it was a subconscious thing, but when you would see cats like Johnny Guitar, Watson, you would see that they weren't doing it by the book either. Is that? I mean, could you say that there were peeps that you were?
Oh yeah.
That when you saw them, you said, "Well, I'm not going to play like them or sound like them, but I like the fact that they are doing it different."
I think that when I would try to sound like them, I would try to sound like them, but I would interpret it different than them. And say if they would play the C note, I'd play the C note minor, and so it would be just my interpretation of what they were playing came out to be the style of that what came to being Howard Scott.
So, in these early '60s period with, how did you originally meet Harold Brown?
I'll tell you, I met Harold Brown when we were playing in a club in San Pedro, California. I was playing with my nephew Jack Nelson and my cousin Jack. My cousin Jack, and we were waiting for a bass player to come in. I mean, to get a drummer to come in. I was playing bass and Harold Brown came in. His father brought him in, and my uncle and my dad were there. So we had all these elderly, grown-ups with us. And he came in, and we played the whole set, and we were talking, and he said, "Well, hey, man, me and him were both in high school. He was in 10th grade, and I was in the 10th grade. So we kind of made a connection there. Say, hey, man, listen, why don't we start a band together?" So I think about 2 or 3 days after I met Harold Brown in that club, he came up to my father's house and my mother's house, and I was sitting on the porch waiting with a friend of mine named Joe Green, who was a bass player, and we hit it off. We started a band from that point on called Creators.
Was it all original?
Our first band.
Were you doing? Can you talk about the? This is very. So you were playing. BB was. You were playing bass in this band, right? Or were you playing guitar?
I was playing guitar in the Creators. Yeah.
Okay, so in the Creators, can you talk about how big a palette of music that were you doing jazz tunes? Were you stretching and doing modal tunes, or was it funk? I mean, was it original stuff? I mean, because you were on this Dory Records. This is. Yeah. I mean, I can't find any. Do you have these 45? I mean, what kind of music was this? Is soul music?
Dory, you remember Dory Records? Phil Spector was down there at Gold Star Records when Dory was there. That Dory Records was out of Gold Star Studios.
Exactly.
Phil Spector was down there. Sonny and Cher were down there. The Beach Boys were down there at that Gold Star Studio. So we were surrounded by greatness, as you might say, at an early age. We were in high school. Those cats were all there playing that music.
What kind? This is the other thing, is that with Harold, what kind of? I mean, was he the cat? Could you just talk about how he used the bass drum? Because what we have going on today, since the drum machine has come in, a lot of times you can't hear music sounds like machine gun fire because a double bass drum's just pulsating 4-4-4-4. The old school, the drummers from your generation and even before that. They had a way of using the bass drum for rebound and also keeping time on the cymbals. And I just wanted you really to talk about, you had your own internal rhythm. You had these rhythms inside your head. You keep talking about that. Can you talk about Harold's drumming style and how it lent itself to the groove and the danceable rhythms that you guys put on? How is he using the bass drum? How is he using the cymbals?
Okay, I have to take you back to our beginnings of the Creators and what the Creators did. We played in a nightclub called Jeffy's. And if you played Jeffy's nightclub, you had to be on top of your game because, like I said, all the cats was out there playing, looking for jobs. These clubs right here were very popular. So we learned commercially how to play. We played James Brown. We took the whole James Brown show from the Apollo, live at the Apollo, had it down like almost a cover band. We could have been James Brown's band. We were that good. And our lead singer was, his name is Johnny Hamilton. And Johnny Hamilton could sing the James Brown stuff, do the splits and dancing and stuff. So we started doing that, and we learned at an early age that if you want to make it in this business, we can't be James Brown's band forever. You have to be your own band. So when we went in, you talk about the stuff on Dory Records. We did. You could go online and look up Johnny Hamilton and Little Johnny Hamilton. Oh, How I Love You. You could look that up. Then you pop up the Creators with Little Johnny Hamilton. Oh, How I Love You. That's What Love Will Do was a song that we wrote in the Creators that ended up on a war. That first war. CD, That's What Love Will Do. That was written by the Creators, myself and Milton James back in when we were in El Paso, Texas.
Listen, I just queued it up. So we got this Little Johnny and the Creators, Oh How I Love You. We got a taste of early Howard Scott. Here we go.
I love you. Oh, 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 girl, how I love you. Like the ocean kiss the sand. You know that I'll always be your man. That's why I say, oh, 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 how I love you. Yeah. That's why I say, oh, 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 girl, how I love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. My knees are my accessory, like a tree. My accessory is loving you, baby. That's why I'm down on me. Oh, 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 how I love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, 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 girl, how I love you. Yeah, how I love you. How I love you. Girl, I love you. I just love you. I every day.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show brought to you by Abbott Taylor Jewelers, the Stereo Hospital, the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona, and the Jewish Federation of Southern Arizona. And we thank them for their support so we can play this mercurial soul music for Howard Scott. I mean, break that down, man. I mean, that is really, that sounds like more like Motown than you know, that. I mean,
I have to tell you about this song here. You remember when this was a high school band, and it wasn't so like a Motown sound. It was a L.A. sound coming up from a guy, but it was in our band by the name of Fred Hughes. Fred Hughes had a song called "Ooh Baby I Love You." Ooh wee baby I love you. He was in we were in high school together. He was in the 12th grade. I was in the 10th grade. That record right there went to probably number 3 or 4 in the nation. He was in high school. So when he was in the band with us, he left. I mean, Dick Clark took him, and he took him on tour and just left us out there without Fred Hughes. So when we took that song, Johnny Hamilton and the Creators, and went up to Dory Records up there, Gold Star. I mean, Doc Siegel was producing that record right there. So we had never had a producer like Doc Siegel. I'm telling you, these are high school guys now. We did that "Ooh Baby," not "Ooh Baby," "Oh How I Love You," but with Johnny Hamilton. That was our creation right there. We thought we were gonna like hit this song, bam, we'd be automatically on top.
right.
Took us about 15 more years after that. It's not that long, but that was a good start.
It was really. I mean, did you get on the? Were you on the Chitlin circuit, and what was that like?
What Chitlin circuit, man? We grew up on the Chitlin circuit, man. We carved our name on every wall in the Chitlin circuit.
Well, but I mean, okay. So, but I just want to.
Yeah.
I mean, listen. There was Charles Sullivan up in the Fillmore district. The Chitlin circuit was Martinez, Hayward, a whole bunch of stuff in Northern California. But I'm not, and I know that the Kinfolk, they did all sorts of Appalachia up and down the East Coast. But you got to tell me about the Southern California Chitlin circuit. I mean, what kind of clubs were you going to?
Oh man, we played in some clubs. If you didn't have a cut on you when you in, you'd have a cut on you when you came out. You know. So I mean, we look when we played. We went to there was a club in El Paso, Texas called Basin Street East, and here we are in high school. We took a ride from Los Angeles all the way to El Paso, Texas, to play a weekend at a club called Basin Street. And we got to El Paso, Texas, and these club owners down there, boy, they had something else on their mind that we wasn't even aware of when we came there. So they kind of tricked us into having this whole bill, at the end of the weekend say, well, okay, well, you guys owe us $900. What?
What?
How could that be? Yeah, for hotel charges and, going to a hotel, they put you in there and they just sign your name here. You get anything you want, your food and stuff. It wasn't that it was $900. Whatever it was, we didn't have the money to pay that because they said, well, okay, so now you're going to have to work it off.
Wow.
True story. So they didn't have to work it off. So we had to stay there in El Paso and work every night. Boy, they had a good band there, man. So we had stayed in El Paso. They put us into like bungalows over in Juarez, Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Juarez, you said Juarez, Mexico.
Yeah.
I love this because there was not the black part of town for you to stay in. You couldn't even stay there.
No, they put us in that Juarez, Mexico because it was cheaper than the black part of town.
Oh my! I mean, I've been to El Paso, so Juarez is right there, so it wasn't that big a trip, but that is still.
Well, back there in them days, you could go across. It was like you would have to come across the border every night, but it was cheaper. Look, man, to stay in the black part of town probably cost maybe $60 a week, and El Paso and Juarez probably cost $20 a week. So they knew what they were doing. They put us over there in Juarez, so we know really the cheapest part of Mexico we could stay in, so we could just work it off. And what it did was it cultivated us, made us a tougher band.
So you worked it off, and I mean, again, this cat Hughes jettisoned out. I'm just still trying. Were you playing at that point? Were you playing original Howard Scott tunes?
Yes.
Stuff that later showed up. Like, can you name a few tunes? I'm just curious about the kind of, because I'm based in Street West. That's like, I mean, again, labels have destroyed music in some ways. It's all music, but I mean, that to me speaks of like, that's a kind of like a jazz thing, a cannonball. Were you doing cannonball tunes?
No. This is a club in El Paso. It was a blues club, wasn't it? It was a blues club. It was based in the Street East. It was out of El Paso. No, we weren't playing any jazz during them days. We had horn players, but we weren't playing jazz. We were playing funk. That funk thing that we started playing developed into the music that came up to be war music. So that whole development phase came up from the Creators. Creators were down in El Paso.
Got it.
Fred Hughes was in the Creators band. We had two singers in the Creators. It was Johnny Hamilton and Fred Hughes. Fred Hughes got the hit, "Ooh, Baby, I Love You," and Dick Clark took him. So left us with Johnny Hamilton. So we said, okay, this is what we got. Let's go. We took it. We took that across the country. Played Arizona. We played San Diego. We played up and down the coast. But during those days, we were destined to be a backup band. That's all we wanted to do is be a backup band.
You wanted to be accompanists in a backup band for? Could you flesh that out?
Pretty much so, because we had the James Brown show, Pat, and so Johnny thought that he could be James Brown and being James Brown, So you could be James Brown being James Brown, but James Brown is James Brown, And if you want to be, on your own, so we started during the Watts riots. During the Watts riots, we had a song called "Burn, Baby, Burn," with magnificent Montague. He was disc jockey in Los Angeles. We put that record out, "Burn, Baby, Burn." Oh, it was on the radio playing. Next couple of weeks, the White riot started. The whole theme was the riot was "Burn, Baby, Burn." Took that record out of sight. Don't you ever come up here with a record like "Burn, Baby, Burn." Helped burn down Los Angeles. That was our first try at the record. It's called "Burn, Baby, Burn," and that didn't make it. But we kept on trying. We kept on until, we kept doing our own original music. "Burn, Baby, Burn" was original.
This is really fascinating because there was no musical term in the lexicon known as funk when the Creators were going on. You might say play a funky blues. I mean, funk really didn't become a word until I'd say war was fully off the ground in the early 70s. So can you talk about this evolution? So they'd say, play a funky blues, but there was no word, let's play some funk. But you were playing funk then. You guys were playing funk as high school cats before the word was ever existed. So I'm just curious.
I'll tell you how that existed, because when this, like I said, this is something we grew up with, and the environment that we grew up with. There was a street in Compton, California called Compton Boulevard. On one side of Compton Boulevard was black community. On the other side of Compton Boulevard was a Mexican community. We would cross these streets back and forth, you know, just playing with each other's bands, and we started getting these different rhythms. You know, the Mexicans came up with what kind of rhythm, we came up with the kind of rhythm, and through that, man, we started interpreting this timing of that came in from like the Baptist church.
Oh, I love it. You're getting going. You're getting going. Can you? So it was like a clave, because they weren't playing mariachi music. I mean, that was like after.
No,
yeah, it was like
no.
These rhythms. What was the rhythm? So keep going with these rhythms. The blending of these rhythms.
The rhythm. So a lot of rhythms came out of that we were doing. We came from, like, you know, listening to what we heard in church. You know, I always say what I heard in church. With the things that came from James Brown, the things that came from the Mexicano community, we started developing our own rhythms and like our own timing. And our own timing came in. We started playing these riffs and stuff, and started playing just locking into a riff and playing till you can't play it no more until it got stupid. And then from that right there came these things about, you know, putting lyrics to that timing there. And from that time in there, we started doing Cisco Kid was a friend of mine. But, you know, before then, we had just, you know, when we were with Eric Burden. Eric Burden had a need for a band. And the band that he needed, he really needed band. He came in and saw us playing one night, and as we were playing as a night shift, we was back up at for Deacon Jones. Eric got us because then we were able to like really get into playing that funk stuff. We kept developing our style.
I want to just talk about the ragdoll. Did you play burlesque houses, by the way? You play in strip clubs?
Oh, we did that, but no, that was back in the Jeopardy days. No, we played that, yeah, but we played them all. We played behind cats like Mantan Moreland.
I need to hear about that. So I mean, were the strippers calling out like Duke Ellington tunes? I mean, that's the word jazz was jazz originally. I mean, it used to go. Yeah, break that down. I mean, the broth.
We would play behind. I guess we would call them shake dancers, strippers, and, you know, girls would come out with, you know, with snakes around them and shit, and I'd be get that shit away from me. You know, we play music behind those kind of people, and then on the same, this is like, I guess, called burlesque shows. We would play behind cats like Mantan Moreland and Diamond Tooth Martin and all those guys. You know, they were the old school comedians. You know, Mantan Moreland, he was and I forget, he was with not being crossed. One of those cats.
Were you playing like behind like Red Fox and things like that?
We were playing clubs that Red Fox are playing. You doggone right, yes.
Oh, I love this, dude.
That was the whole L.A. scene.
Did you?
Red Fox and all these guys they would all hang together. All those, you know, comedians like that. As a matter of fact, there was a club in Compton called Duto, and Red Fox was recorded by this club in Duto, and he was on Duto Records. As you look at his early records.
Well, how do you spell Shefties? What was that club that you were talking about?
Jeftys, Jefties.
And
it was on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was on Avalon Boulevard in El Segundo, and right there in Compton.
You know, I part of me is like, I was thinking about our interview last night, and I know you're a guitar player, but I was, you know, so many guitar players actually were influenced or developed rhythm through, you know, piano or organ, but I was like, you know, I just feel like Howard. I mean, did you get a chance to see Coltrane play? Man,
listen, I never saw Coltrane, and I never was hip to Coltrane until I was like in United States Army when I was stationed in Europe.
Okay.
And some of the guys would come in, and my sister sent me John Coltrane, Lou Rawls, you know, so it's just some of the stuff like that. And we'd be sitting back in room sometime, like listening to the music and stuff, and they have the Beatles and the Beach Boys, and I'd throw on Coltrane. And we sit back there listening. Everybody's meditating, listening and stuff. And I'd open my eyes, and the room would be empty. When Coltrane was playing, and the guy who came up to me and said, "Man, that Coltrane, that's an evil dude." I say, "Shit, okay." Coltrane was playing these riffs and stuff, man. I was into that, man. You know, my first experience Coltrane, he took me out there, man. I was into that.
Why people were meditating and then ultimately they left the room? Was it like the modal stuff? I mean, was it like where he was just channeling, you know, the thesaurus of scales?
They were smoking hashish.
Say again?
Tripping. I said they were smoking hashish and tripping. You know, they were just into that mode right there. When Coltrane started playing, you coming from Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band to the Beatles. The Beatles going back to the Beach Boys. Please give me good vibrations. Then you throwing Coltrane right behind that. He's playing My Favorite Thing. Take that thing right there. I'm back. I'm flying with it because that's where I was. Those other cats was with me. They said Coltrane suddenly. They jumped right off the ship and took off running. You know, Coltrane was a little too heavy for him. Coltrane was heavy for a lot of people, man. He's still the standard in jazz right now, saxophone.
I also wanted to. Did you know Rick Holmes, the DJ?
Rick Holmes, he was an LA guy. I never met Rick. I talked to him, I think, maybe about a month ago. I think Rick Holmes, one of those guys that was on 103.
Yeah, well, no, he was a kind of like a astrology guy. He'd riff on astrology, and he'd bring you into the store and talk to. I mean, he'd invite cats in and things like that. You know, I want to put in this piece of music for you, and I want you to. This is a Howard Scott solo. I want to see if you can nail this tune. All right. Do you recognize that tune?
Vibika.
What is that? Is that a Swahili name?
No, it's just that came from Mr. Lee Oscar there. Now he'll tell you the story about Vibika. Vibika was some girl back there in Denmark that I think she was a hooker, street hooker, or something that was killed and something. So I see you like that first War album.
I just think that it's like, I think it gets overlooked all the time. I just think it's...
There's a song on there called Son, Oh Son.
I love it so much.
Yeah, I wrote that song, Son, Oh Son, and that was back in The Sun Blows My Mind, Keeps My Tonsils Dry. That's my poetry days, my revolutionary days. I just got out of the military, and I think we just left Eric Burden. and United Artists needed a song from war, which we weren't really equipped to do. So some of those songs that came up on the our first war album were songs left over from the creators. But Vivica, that song right there, but it was on the first war album. Very, you say, overlooked. Nobody even knows that song right there because it was just buried in that first war album. Even if you got the first war album, you have to dig deep to find the song Vivica.
The reason I love it is because you guys are just channeling this. Your roots is so hard. It's the most authentic album. I just wonder. Also, after that, you had these like titanic hits. Every album after that was just monstrous pop radio hits, and I have to believe that you guys, being, as Lee Oscar said, you guys were not cookie cutter guys. You weren't trying to make hits, right? I mean, those things.
Well, I'll tell you, when we did that first war album, I had a song called "Slipping in the Darkness."
I love it, man. You wrote the lyrics too to these?
I wrote the lyrics of "Slipping in the Darkness" when we were with Eric Burden, and I took the song "Slipping in the Darkness" before we left Eric Burden and did a war. I took the song "Slipping in the Darkness" and I took it to Eric, and when we were in England, and I played it for him. He didn't like it. So I took "Slipping in the Darkness" and buried it, So when we did the first war album, we weren't ready for "Slipping in the Darkness" and forgot about that song. But we did "Slipping in the Darkness" later on. That broke war. Can you hold some phone for a second, please?
Yeah, please. Talking to a legendary cat here, Howard Scott, here on the Jake Feinberg Show, live on Power Talk. We've got a big show coming up today, but he's already dropping knowledge. He's been talking about channeling Coltrane and the jazz, the transcendent jazz, and it left people in the dark, but also the idea of ultimately trying to, Are you back with us, brother?
I am back with you. I have a house full of kids here, man.
I was gonna say that I want you. This is so important because that first war album is my favorite album. But then why can't we be friends? Lowrider, Get Down. I mean, all these are the funky. Those were the hits. Were you trying to make hits? No.
Look, I didn't know what a hit record was. All I knew is that when we left Eric Burden, and we were like this band that was supposed to crack it right from the beginning. We did the first war album, Fidel's Fantasy, Son O' Son, Vivica, That's What Love Will Do. Lost My Soul in '68, Where Were You? That was heavy duty music right there, but it flew over the top of mainstream, and people said, "Well, you guys right here, you guys are supposed to come up and be this band that did all this stuff." And the first war album, as you say, did not really hit that mark. People just overlooked it. So we came back with "Slipping in the Darkness." "Slipping in the Darkness" broke the band war. And I didn't know whether it was a hit or not. I tell you, because I didn't know it was a hit, because my thought was, I wrote "Slipping in the Darkness" and the song "Nappy Head."
Right.
And I thought "Nappy Head" should be the single. This is my thinking, So Steve Gold, our manager at the time, he took. I guess he made the right call. He took "Slipping in the Darkness" and ran with it, and that broke the band war.
Can you talk about, for cats that were not on this earth, Ndugu Chancellor, the great drummer, he was from Louisiana, and his family was French Creole, and his dad had a business, and because he was a successful independent black business owner, he was run out of town, and they moved out to California, and so I wanted you to talk about leaving the army, this revolutionary poetry. Who were some of the people that I mean, were you channeling? I want to know who some of the people you were looking up to, and also some of the like Son O Son. I mean, can you talk about what was driving you, what was burning inside of you, that put you in this sort of, I would call it almost a trance, where you were writing these lyrics that was exactly what your life was about?
I was listening to guys like Coltrane, Archie Shepp.
I love it.
The Beatles. I was getting harmonies from the Beach Boys. I love the harmonies, but Coltrane, Archie Shepp, and I got out, and the Black Panther movement was like, you know, for going strong, power to the people, black is beautiful, and this whole movement was out there. The United States was going through this whole transitional thing of revolution, and Son O Son was my revolutionary song. It was like, if you listen to the words, sun blows my mind, keeps my tongue so dry, bullets, my cradle, and I heard my babies cry, oh son, there was a sun in the sky, sun in my heart, you know, Son O Son, I believed in you, the whole universe. You know, that was my whole writing and thinking at the time right there, Son O Son. I thought Son O Son was like this great song, which it was, and I got B.B. Dickinson to sing it.
I was gonna say, I mean, this is like, were you playing Black Panther rallies like with Huey Lewis and those cats? I mean, were you mixing it up?
Lee Oscar was up there with those cats. I was in SoCal, and I didn't have time to do that. But you know, I was feeling that. I was just moving in that direction because the country was moving in that direction, and I was there. I was there mentally.
Where do you, like, when you look at it today, I talked to Richard Davis, the great bass player, and, you know, this is a guy who couldn't get a classical bass gig, even though he was, you know, by far the best bass player because he was black. And he maintains that we could go through the civil rights movement again today. What Ndugu told me was that the Watts riots were a demoralizing event for the black community in a lot of ways. And I just wonder, you look at where we're at today, some of the issues we're struggling with today, we're in some ways more multicultural today than we've ever been. And it seems like we're fighting the original sin of our country, which is slavery. And I just kind of wanted you to talk about, from your point of view, there's no right or wrong answer, but have we evolved? You had momentum in that early 70s period. You had a lot of momentum.
Yeah,
we all did. You know, and there were people, but now I just wonder, are we treading water? Are we just stuck in place? Are we regressing? What does Howard Scott say as far as humanity?
I look back in when you're talking about those days, right there, you had people, the outstanding spokesmen, leadership like Huey Lewis, Eldridge Cleaver. You had people from Martin Luther King. You had Malcolm X. You had people that were standing up making statements like. They were making statements about what the world was like, what conditions were like, and big followings behind it. We had a big movement, and the whole movement was like on fire. And we were a part of that right there, man. You know, we put out a song called Get Down.
Oh, my God. And those lyrics... the president ain't real. I mean, dude, those lyrics are so perfect for today's times that we're living through, man.
Let me tell you a line that we stopped doing. The police and their justice are laughing while they bust us. They got to get down. They got to get down. Every time we would do that, even when we first put it out, we put it out in a song. We played it in Memphis, Tennessee. And before we went on stage, the chief of police came up and said, son, if you play the Get Down song, you're going to need these two things. You're going to need a bail bond, give me a card for bail bond, and another card for the hospital. He said, if you play that song, you're going to need both these cards. So I said, oh, shit, I'm not playing Get Down tonight. So
I thought you were going to say that. You're like, okay, well, let's play it. First song, we'll play it.
No, but we played it.
You did?
Yeah, we played it. But instead of doing the words in English, Papa D came up and did the words, I think in German, some kind of East Coast shit he was talking about. And they were sitting back there listening. We were doing the whole same song, and I think he did it in German and walked away with it. But it didn't stop us from doing that. You know, we were just like saying, You got to get down there. Like if you run in the country and you ain't running the funky, the police and the justice. That was another revolutionary song. We're always on the cutting edge.
Going back to just where are we at today? I mean, are we regress? Where do you think we're at right now? Truthfully,
I think we're going backwards.
Yep.
Because anytime a black person or a brown person can't have equal rights in this beautiful country that we have, which is one of the greatest on earth. But I think what keeps the United States of America from being truly, truly the greatest country on earth is the way it treats its citizens, and it treats its minority citizens maybe worse than other countries. So in this country here, granted, we're 500 years old, but the people that sit out there, even sit out there and did the marches and stuff, and we got a certain point in history. Well, why do we have to always come to getting this certain point in history? And somebody says we're going to take it away from you. Voting rights should be a right for every person in this country, and we still haven't evolved to the point of getting voting rights. We still got this thing about superiority and racism and stuff that just like we can't get over those stigmas right there that makes this country great. No, we haven't regressed. We are regressing. We're coming further and further back, and I don't know the powers that be, the people who think that they're running stuff. They must not be visionary people because they're running the country backwards.
When was the first time that you went to Congo Square?
Oh, I would go to Congo Square and just sit around there and just trip on things. And we played there a couple of times, but just back in I think the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s.
I mean, that to me was a situation where they would. I mean, just to think about the Europeans that were educated, basically brainwashing the Europeans that came over here and saying, hey, we'll give you these, not humans, not animals, but just sort of these subhumans for slaves, and then we'll let them get this stuff off their chest and let them play. And to know the history of the drum, Toussaint Louverture overthrew the French could not penetrate Haiti because of the drum. The first track, I mean, this to me is like, it all goes back to this original sin, this myth of white supremacy. And it's really, to me, it's a vexing situation. And I've done 3 interviews with Mtume, the percussionist, and he's like, the difference now, you can have stuff on film. You can have a black guy murdered on videotape, and it's still not, justice will not be served. Maybe the police officer will be fired, but he's not going to be convicted. He's not going to be convicted, And there's just something. There's a tripwire there, and it seemed to me like you guys you definitely weren't killing each other. I mean, the Latinos and you guys were blending your musics. I mean, the hood was not, the hood was not the hood that we know today.
Well, I think that even as we are today, if you keep people, so to say, at the bottom of the whole political spectrum, like fighting each other, squabbling with each other, not in tune with each other, then you could pull off the biggest scams that you want to pull off because people are not paying attention. So right now, I would say that where we are today and what we're doing today, and like, I'm going to have to ask you a question. Now, you're talking about Ndugu.
Yeah.
Is he still with us?
Yeah, man. I just had I did a Facebook Live interview with him. I'll give you his number, dude. He's still rocking out. He's at USC, and he's having a really hard time at the university because so many cats that are coming over for the jazz program are international students, and we're having immigration problems. But yeah, he's still with us. He's still he's doing great.
Yeah, I know. Me and Ndugu came up, like crossing paths back in Los Angeles. And it would be very interesting. I would love to sit back and holler at him.
Oh no, I'm gonna hook you up immediately. In fact, he told me that he played drums with with Johnny Otis in the band back in the day. I mean, this is what I'm saying. It was this huge. I'll give you his number immediately. But
yeah, give it to him. You can. I'll get you on another line. So
yeah.
You can text it to me.
I mean, this tune is the legendary Howard Scott. It's such a great hang. Let's just take a listen to the lyrics of this tune. I think it's Dickerson on vocals, but we'll find out. I could listen to that all day long, man. Unbelievable.
But listen, going back to the beginning, we have the answers. With Son of Son, I wrote that song. I put the words in there. This is the way I was looking at things in those days. But I'll leave the interpretation of that to anybody that's listening to it, for them to get their own words, their own thoughts of what that song means to them.
How much of that was built on War's music? Just the idea that you knew what was going on in your head, but you were completely okay with the idea of whatever people wanted to make up their minds about how it impacted their own lives. I mean, with all the music you made, I mean, I some of the stuff is just you know, it's so spot on, and there's some sort of visionary karmic thing going on. I actually have to believe that some kind of psychedelic use was going on at that time as well.
No, well, I never did the psychedelic trip. For me, I wouldn't be able to write doing psychedelics. I think, I wouldn't be able to control it. No, it wasn't that. It was just, maybe I just have a psychedelic mind.
Yeah, I think you do, man. I think you have.
Yeah, but just Son O' Son was like, it's you got to believe that was like, when I'm looking at the whole world situation, Son O' Son plays into that. And when I did Slip into Darkness, people get slipping into darkness. They get their own interpretation of what slipping into darkness means, which is better because it puts you into the song, that you imagine yourself being a part of the song. Cisco Kid was a friend of mine. That would always be two guys who sit back and say, okay, me and this guy did this. This is my best friend, Cisco and Pancho. They did whatever they did in life. You always had somebody, your best homeboy, your friend. You went through changes, grew up together, and this was a me and baby brother. That was a tribute to a guy that I grew up with and went to Vietnam, and he didn't come back. He died in Vietnam. His name was Philip Lamar. And people would always give me and baby brother, but this is me and my baby brother. Just the whole thing of the lyrics put people into the song, and they could imagine themselves being a part of the song.
Can I get from your psychedelic mind? I always love talking to the older cats, because when I see younger cats on the bandstand, they're so insecure about where the one is. And where's the one? And I remember a story about James Jamerson getting upset because someone was hemming and hawing about where's the one, and he said, any note can be the one. And I want you to talk about the Howard Scott concept when you're in a group that has a lot of trust, and you leave the head of the tune, and you go off, Slipping into Darkness, that live War album, that's like a 17, 20-minute track. When you go off into an improvisational jam and you lose the one, how, when you come back, your concept of any note can be the one. What's the Howard Scott concept on that?
The one is the root. The one is home. The one is what's going to bring everybody together as one. It means exactly what it is, one, the beginning. And if you lose the one, you go on the two and the four, you're out there traveling. Now, well, Coltrane would take you there, but you still had that root note that would bring you back. So you were able to, travel within this whole realm of music, but you were able to come back to number one, the root note, the beat, the heartbeat, which is everything in the song.
Was it like someone like McCoy Tyner keeping the one with Train? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how you understood.
Yeah, they would take that. They would leave the one and go out to the psychedelic. They'd leave the one, but it would always be there in the music that they could come back to. Somebody had to keep the one going. It would be the drummer. And wait a minute, Elvin. Who was the drummer with Coltrane? Yeah, Elvin Jones.
Yeah, did you see Elvin play?
No, never, man. But I admire these guys. Coltrane and McCoy Tyner. Oh, what a great. Listen, McCoy Tyner was one of the greatest pianists ever. But I think my favorite was the pianist that played with Charles Lloyd. He was
Keith Jarrett.
Keith Jarrett played a piano solo, which is, to me, the all-time best jazz keyboard solos, was on that song he did with Charles Lloyd, the first Charles Lloyd album, Forest Flower.
So is the title track?
Yeah.
Wow.
With that Forest Flower, boy, he played a piano solo on Forest Flower. My opinion, this cat right here, man, he went to space and didn't come back and left it out for everybody else to catch up.
I think Rahsaan Roland Kirk was doing that too. But
Rahsaan, when we got with Eric Burden, and if you remember Eric Burden, he did a song called Rahsaan.
You're right.
We did a song about Rahsaan Roland Kirk. He admired Roland Kirk. You know, when Roland Kirk would come and playing like 3 saxophones in his mouth at the same time.
Dude, he was like, he had whistles and it was just insanity. But another cat that you might have crossed paths with was the legendary keyboardist Clarence McDonald, great studio musician down in Southern California. And he told me this story about when he served in Vietnam. He said, we were stationed in Chu Chi, which is about 60 miles from Saigon. We were getting killed every night, and we couldn't figure out why. One night we shot some Viet Cong, and they weren't dead, but they were crawling. We said, "Hey, don't kill them. Let's go see where they're trying to get to, because they're all headed the same way." As it turned out, our base camp had a cemetery. Their base camp was directly under ours. All the headstones in that cemetery moved. They'd come up at night, throw charges, and kill up a bunch of us and go disappear. Their base camp had hospitals, schools, everything, and it was directly under ours. And I just wasn't. Did you serve in Vietnam?
No, my Vietnam story was so not Vietnam. My orders were cut for Southeast Asia. I was going with the first Cav when I was in basic training. My orders cut for the first Cav. So I said, if I'm going to Vietnam with First Cav, and First Cav was getting their asses kicked over there, I said, I'm going with the Airborne. So I wanted to go to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was going with 101st Airborne, and I volunteered for Airborne.
Wow.
Yeah, knowing I'm scared of heights. So I went for the Airborne. I'm going to Vietnam. So while I'm waiting for my orders to come to go to jump school, they needed like 10 guys from the United States to go to Europe. And I'm waiting, and the guy said, Scott, would you like to go to Europe? And here I am, got Vietnam right in my face. I said, what? He said, if you've been ready to go to Vietnam, you've got to be ready in like an hour. I was ready in 10 minutes. And they put me on a plane, and I ended up in Coburg and Bamberg, Germany for 18 months, which was a blessing. So I have to attribute that to my mother, because my mother prayed me out of Vietnam. Because I don't know if that would have been an experience that I probably would still carry with me, but I still carry that with me because all the people that I know that went there and didn't come back.
Yeah, well, that's why did you have you must have been playing some burning music over in Germany. That was a hotbed of activity over there.
Oh man, I was playing. You're going to different places and stuff, but back before in the Creators days, I played with the Drifters.
Yeah.
And the Drifters came through town, and they needed guitars, and so when I came back to Southern California, they called me and they sent for me and to come to play the first gig with them was in Denver, Colorado. So I loaded up my gear and I went to Denver, Colorado. But I created just me, and I went on tour with the Drifters, Little Milton, and Jackie Ross.
Wow.
We toured the United States. When we got back to Los Angeles, played a club called the 5-4 Ballroom. I said, look, Dad, I had enough of this right here. I said, I don't want to play with the Drifters anymore. I said, well, son, so they were going up to Seattle. So I was glad to get back to L.A., and I jumped off ship. I said, listen, I can't play this anymore. So they said, okay, cool. They didn't pay me.
They
didn't pay me.
They didn't pay you.
They didn't pay me. They was pissed off at me because they wouldn't finish the tour. So they sent me to Germany. So I'm sitting in Bamberg, Germany. Who comes to town but the Drifters? And who needed a guitar player but the Drifters? And who was sitting there waiting for them, not knowing that they needed me to play? And I came up. I said, hey, guys, what's going on? Howard, blah, 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 blah. I wanted to play this whole set. Everybody was just like floored to see me up there on stage with the Drifters, right? After that, they gave me $900.
That is so great. So they gave you interest on the when they
They didn't pay me for a whole tour, and then they paid me. That was almost that was so much money at that time back in the '60s. It was almost like $10,000 or something, man. And man, plus I had to respect everybody and for both sides of the U.S. Army. They says, "Hey, Howard, God, you were the difference." I played with them. They went on about their business, man, but they paid me.
My gosh, that is so heavy. That is one of the great. We're just wrapping up set one here, my man. We have more to get to, but I also want to know: are you connected? Because he's right. He lives right in your hometown. Is Chuck Rainey? Do you know? Do you guys connect?
I just got the book from Chuck Rainey 2 weeks ago. Some cats gave me his book. They wanted me to play. They wanted him and me to meet on stage out in Fort Worth. And I said, no, I don't want him to play on this set right here because Chuck Rainey's like this type of bass player. And the gigs, I was playing like a charity event. I said, no, I haven't met with him, but I know we crossed paths with this book. As a matter of fact, I got the book that just was given to me last week by Chuck Rainey.
I mean, you mean a book of tunes, or what do you mean?
No. It was a book. Got the book. Just got it. Chuck Rainey lives up in Richmond Hills, which is probably about maybe 30 minutes from where I am right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of apt to put you two together and just play some guitar and bass. I mean, that would be fantastic. But I can you just tell me, was Deacon Jones a train wreck on the bandstand, or was he actually a talented cat?
Yeah, well, Deacon Jones was a football player. I have to give you that. And we played behind. You remember a guy by the name of what was this dude's name? Sonny Charles that did A Letter to Maria.
I just interviewed Sonny. He's in Vegas too. Yeah, absolutely.
Get out of here. Well, we played with him.
I'm going to get you Sonny's number. I'm going to reconnect you with Sonny too.
Okay, well, let me go and tell you a story. We played with Sonny Charles. What was his name? What's the name he go by now?
No, it's the same. He was with the Checkmates, right? He was the Checkmates. He's Sonny Charles.
No. The Letter to Maria. Was it Checkmates?
Yeah.
Okay, we played with him, and we did Letter to Maria before he put out. When he did Letter to Maria, that took him out of the band we were playing with, and Deacon Jones came in right after him. So when Deacon came in, a guy by the name of Freeman King, who was a Sonny and Cher and the Unknown Comic, they had a routine together. And Freeman put us with Deacon Jones, and they wrote a song for Deacon Jones called "Loving a Pro." And we played behind Deacon Jones, and Deacon Jones was, Deacon was like all the rest of those cats that came out of football, like Rosie Greer and Jim Brown, and all those guys came out of football. They wanted to transition their whole career from football to music, and Deacon was one of them. And he was a very, very good guy, man, but, he wasn't such a great entertainer that, we could say that we were going to, be able to further our careers by being with Deacon Jones.
But the Night Shift, right? I mean, that band, is there any?
Yeah, that was the Night Shift.
Do you have any recorded music from the Night Shift? Is that out? Any of
No, but the Night Shift was. As a matter of fact, when we were in the Night Shift, we had a four-piece horn section behind Deacon Jones.
Oh my!
4 pieces. And when Eric Burden came in, he kept Charles Miller. And the rest of those horn guys had to go. He was like, oh, no, don't fire them. But Eric had this vision of putting saxophone and harmonica together to play horn lines.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, which was unheard of. But still today, we use that combination.
This is insane. So you would... ultimately, though, was Blues Image supposed to be the backup band, but then they got signed by Atco? Is that? Well,
they were the backup band for Eric Burden.
Right.
But when they did that song for whatever song, what song did they have?
Ride Captain Ride.
Ride, yeah. When they did Ride Captain Ride, they said, well, Eric Burden, you got to go because we're taking a whole trip together. So that's when they did that. And Eric needed the band, and that's how we got to be with Eric Burden.
I just want to I want to make sure that we're chronologically. So R.B. Greaves wrote the original tune, Take a Letter, but then Sonny Charles.
It was R.B. Greaves first. There is R.B. Greaves, then it was Sonny Charles.
Sonny Charles and the Checkmates, Black Pearl. They did
No,
they did.
Sonny Charles, not Sonny Charles. Sonny Charles. He was R.B. Greaves.
He was R.B.
Well, it was Sonny Charles or R.B. Either one. I don't know, was Sonny Childs first or R.B. Greaves first? I think R.B. Greaves did Let It to Maria, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Well, when he was with us, he was Sonny Childs.
How do you spell Childs? Was Chiles?
Childes, something like that. You know, he was, strange guy.
You know, I look at this tune here, and I say to myself, it's Black Man's Burden, one of the most incredible double albums, and there's a tune, They Can't Take Away Our Music.
Yeah.
They can't take away our music. They can take away everything else. They can take away your freedom, your dignity. I mean, is that what that was getting at? They can't take away our music.
Are you going to play that?
Right now.
Oh, go ahead.
Here we go.
There's a feeling shared today by the people whose freedom has been taken away. And as in the past when times were wrong, the common folks come together in song. How will we win? With what will we fight? We hope with this song, our world we will unite.
Oh, there's one thing that I'm sure, it's so proud and it's so pure, and it comes from deep within. It's got no hair, it's got no skin. As we travel far and near, deep in the world, we hear, and the message that we bring is alive in the words we sing. And no matter how bad we feel, we got something they can't steal. No, they can't. It gets cold, but we got something to warm our souls, like the blanket of our faith keeps us covered in the shade. Though they take my brother's life and deny human life, it's the message will be heard as the poets read the word. And our spirit, they can
Back on Power Talk Live here with a legend guitarist, Howard Scott. You know, before I let you go, and I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I just would love you to talk about your relationship with Jimi Hendrix and ultimately the fact that you were with him before the night before he passed. He was on the bandstand with you guys.
I truly miss Jimmy, and my relationship was just truly but straight up respect. When I first met Jimmy, we were in Los Angeles together at a bungalow, and we were at this party together, and we were talking, and I saw Jimmy sitting at his chair, which he was sitting in like a regal situation. He had about 5 or 6 women sitting around him, and, you know, he was just sitting there being Jimi Hendrix, and me and him started talking, and it was like we beamed in on each other, and we got a relationship from the beginning, a spiritual relationship. And every time I saw Jimmy since then, he would acknowledge me, and I would acknowledge him. So when we played Ronnie Scott's, and Jimmy came in, he came in 2 nights in a row. First night he came in, he wasn't able to play. But the second, and I saw him coming down from the audience at Strat, and the club is packed. Greatest audience ever. He came in with a Strat, and I had my Gibson. We plugged into an orange amplifier, so I grabbed my guitar and pulled it out. I'm getting ready to bail, and he said, Howard, stay.
Wow.
Stay with me. So I said, okay. And here I'm playing, you know, I know Jimmy, man, but he's just the greatest guitar player ever. And I'm going to be playing with him? Huh?
So you guys, the first night, did you play together, or this was only the second night you played together?
Second night, he wasn't able to play the first night. He didn't have his guitar with him, and he wasn't able to play.
Okay.
Second night, he came ready. He came loaded for bear because he studied our set, and he was ready. And like I said, I took that guitar, and I was ready to leave. He told me, Howard, stay. So I said, okay, great, I'll stay. So he was out there playing. We went Tobacco Road and all that stuff. We played with Eric Braden. He played with us. And then when we got to Mother Earth, the blues thing, he got into this incredible blues guitar solo. And if you ever listen to the him playing that solo on Mother Earth, you could hear him, his exit. You could hear him, like, you know, transitioning, saying, this is my final place on this earth. My interpretation, because I read it that way. And then I got my courage up, and me and him was trading licks. Well, I'm trading licks with Jimmy. I said, whoa, who am I? And I did that stuff, and we had a great time that night, man. We were all, you know, high-fiving each other afterwards, and I remember walking from Ronnie Scott's. I was such a high place that I walked home to the hotel in the rain, you know, just didn't feel the rain. It was so great. Next night he was supposed to come back, and he didn't come back that night. And I think the next night he passed away. He died that night. And when he passed away, my tour manager brought Jimmy Strat and put it in my hotel room. Asked me why, I don't know. So Jimmy Strat was, I was in a Holiday Inn in London, and it had double beds, 2 beds in it. I was in one bed, and Jimmy Strat was in the other. And I did that guitar. I never touched it.
Well,
I was in my room for 2 days.
So, just to be clear, that was the first time you guys actually ever shared the bandstand together.
Yeah.
What a beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, you know what, man? Can we do part 2 in the next couple weeks or something like that? I'd love to do part 2.
Sure. I mean, you know, I'll be more than happy to do it. But just give me a heads up. I just came from doing a gig up in Seattle with the Lowrider Band, which is like, you know, the heart and soul of that band called War.
Oh, I need to talk to all those cats, man.
Yeah, well, you had Lee Oscar on, but I'll be more than happy to do that with you. Just, you know, this is a pleasure doing this segment with you. Took me back, but that song we just got through playing, They Can't Take Away Our Music.
Yeah.
Very, very revolutionary song from Eric Burden. People need to, you know, I think in today's climate, people need to listen to the lyrics of some of these songs if they could just like slow down and listen to some of the things we did with War. And one more thing about War was one of the most underrated bands as far as music goes. It made such an influence on other bands that was going on today, because you can listen to some of the songs the War did, and you say, oh, this is the first time I heard it. The song's been around forever. But the first time they heard it, it makes an impact on people. And that was just the way War was. We were a revolutionary band, played that kind of music that's still good today.
Howard Scott, I love you, man. We just cooked for about 96 minutes. So that's the show, man. So I hope you got inspired, and I'll get you a copy of this later. And I also,
I wish you would, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And then also, if you just let me know how you want, I can shoot you Ndugu's. If you have an email, or I can just give you a private message with his phone number.
Why don't you call me back on that other line that you called me on, and then we can talk on that, okay? My cell phone.
All right. I got 2 more interviews, so I'll give you a holler a little bit later, and we'll figure it out.
You can give me you just take care of yourself. You can give me a call when you get back, or you could text me his number on that other line.
Yeah, definitely call him, man. He's around, and he's doing his thing.
I'll call him.
All right, Howard. Be good, man.
All right, take care, JJ.
Later on now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Incredible musician, and definitely a better human being, Howard Scott. We'll be back with Justin Mazer on the other side of the break, right after this.
Thank